Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Patreon time is here. That's right. We're talking about The Phantom of the Paradise on Kill by Kill's Patreon exclusively for you, our lovely supporters who help keep this podcast free for everyone. My name is Patrick Hamilton. I'm your old internet friend. And every month we talk about a movie exclusively for our patrons. And this month it is a listener's request. But of course, I don't do this alone. There's only one person I trust that if I have to select individual body parts out of an audience to create a pseudo-sexual homunculi, she'll help me do it. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing, Gina?
I'm so happy to be talking about this movie.
It's a great movie. We were saying just before we started recording, is probably going to be one of those episodes where we just slobber over it the entire time because there's not much for me to be critical about. It's either a movie you're into or not, but it is just genuinely a amazing piece of art.
Yeah, it took me way too long to watch this movie. I don't remember when I first saw it. I just know I came to it fairly later than I should have. And I was like, where have you been all my life?
And the only reason I think I sought it out earlier than most. Oh, and here comes, yes, I'm getting breakfast delivery. My apologies. Thank you, Becky. Oh, very nice. The only reason I ended up seeing Phantom of the Paradise any earlier than anyone else is the sequences in Terror in the Isles. Which
don't really go in it at all.
No.
Yeah, that's where I first saw it. I'm like, what the hell is this movie?
It's so weird that you're like, what is this and how can I get my eyeballs on it?
Yeah, and I saw in the credits because they list every movie that they show, and it was all like Universal movies, right? I mean that was basically the
it was a lot of Universal movies,
common thread
and license, but
right.
There are other films in there. I mean, Friday the 13th is in there. There's Halloween is in there, so there's a little cross mixture there. They are trying to get as many films as they possibly could, which is why it was such a rights nightmare. And the fact that it came out on Blu-ray is fucking incredible. And again, somehow we should try to talk about that movie one time on the show.
Well, sure. I mean, for people our age, it's instrumental in development as a horror fan. But yeah, I saw the crowd like Phantom of the Paradise. What the hell is that? I literally at the time had never heard of it, and it was not on. It was not available on cable at that point. So I was like, I don't know what this movie is.
Yeah, it is. It's so unique. I mean, obviously, a lot of what this comes down to is like you couldn't come up with it at any other moment in time. It absolutely had to be in the early 70s. Watching it last night, I was struck how it's at this forefront of a time in popular music, in particular rock music, that really hadn't happened before because rock music hadn't been around long enough for it to happen before. And that is nostalgia. Nostalgia was new to rock music because there had never been rock music to be nostalgic for before that. Up to this point, you have a lot of bands obviously ripping the hell off of blues riffs, but the vast majority of the audiences that they were marketing themselves to had not heard those albums. But now you're at a point where there are fans of rock music who have aged out of the exact lane of rock music. And so there are people who are marketing themselves and creating sounds that harken back to a decade or more before this moment in time. And I think there was, especially coming off the late 60s, there's all this turmoil. Rock is at the sword's point of a movement of young people, and that all just fucking goes to hell. And so people are kind of like, I don't know what I want. I'm lost. And there's all these people within the record industry who are like, I don't know, would you like the Beach Boys again? Because we'll give that to you. Would you like doo-wop music again? Because we will give that to you. And Phantom of the Paradise, weirdly enough, is like right on the precipice of that happening. It's so crazy. This is committed to film in 1974.
Well, yeah, and this was the same, like within a year or so after American Graffiti came out, which kind of set off that whole nostalgia for the 50s, which, you know, resulted in Happy Days and movies like that. And then, of course, in the 80s, everybody was nostalgia for the 60s, and the 90s, everybody was nostalgic for the 70s. And it's just now we are in a constant cycle of chasing our own tails.
Right. Yeah, it never stopped after that point. It could have if society at large had rejected it. But of course, I don't think we do necessarily want to reject
now we're in
waves.
And now we're in a nostalgia for the early 2000s, which I'm like, really? Okay, because I don't remember anything. Like, I will give you that there are certain aspects of 70s, 80s, and 90s pop culture that, you know, I look back at fondly. Obviously with the, some of it with the rose-colored glasses of childhood attached to it. But, I was still fairly young in the early 2000s. And I'm like, what do we remember here? The Paris Hilton years? The rise of reality television? Because I don't know that anybody looks, again, unless you were like 14, I don't know that anybody looks back at that area, that period with any particular, man, those were the good old days.
But everyone's days are someone's good old days. That is the wild thing about it, is that, your first introduction to various pop culture machinations are the ones you look back on with some amount of, rose-colored glasses, and it gives you the warm fuzzies. There's always going to be that. So the fact that there are these very popular cultural touchstones that you can instantly point to that are massive influences is, I think, the newer component to this. And for all I know, there's somebody in the 1870s who's looking back at the 1850s. It's like, we had it right. This is what we needed to be doing.
Back in my day, we died of yellow fever. We were happy to do it.
Like real people.
None of my siblings reached adulthood, and I turned out fine.
Look at me, owning this factory in which I force 5-year-olds to change out gears. Sure, they might lose a finger or two along the way, but that's what industry needs.
more children's fingers.
Truly. Whenever I employ my child to find something that has fallen underneath my bed, I'm like, I'm sorry, but you're small and your hands fit.
You have smaller hands.
You have smaller hands. It's like, get up in there. Like, could be worse. You could be working in a factory right now.
You can flatten your body like a rat. You do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not my fault you're skinny. Just get up in there. Jesus. I feed you enough. You just have decided to grow long. Oh my God. I'm going to be looking up at this kid at junior high school graduation.
Oh yeah. My daughter was taller than me by the time she was 13. So I get it.
Yeah. But you are also a mini me.
Yes. I am already short to begin with. So that wasn't difficult.
You are officially fun sized, I think is the popular term. So I'm not surprised by that. So, of course, none of this would really be worth talking about without Brian De Palma, one of the film brats, I think, is how popular culture has decided to refer to them as, is the first generation of Hollywood directors who brought film school influences into their actual Hollywood work. And De Palma ends up at one point filming a documentary, and it's something Dionysus, but it's this San Francisco theater troupe who basically put on a bacchanalia every night on stage. And he manages to film this in his typical style. It's more documentary, but there's a lot of split screen. There's multiple cameras. You're seeing the action from multiple places. And this is where the idea starts to first crawl into his head of if he could capture something, this kind of energy on stage in a different way, in somewhere where he could tell a real story as opposed to document a moment in time. And he manages to combine like every free available horror, story all into one. You've got Phantom of the Opera. You've got The Picture of Dorian Gray. You've got Faust. He just puts it all in a blender and then calls Paul Williams and says, start writing songs, baby. I've got a movie idea. And this is what it comes out. It flopped. It flopped hard when it came out here. But there is one city in Canada where it just played for 2 years. And that's where the cult of this begins. But I think
those people were extremely forward thinking.
Yes. Well, I do think it's weird that this happens before Rocky Horror, because obviously there was something in the water, something in the cultural miasma, because weirdly enough, like Rocky Horror plays in a lot of the same tropey elements of it. Now, I think it has a more rousing musical element. Paul Williams is doing a lot of I don't know. When your best song is over the end credits, to me, that's fucking bold. I mean, there are a lot of songs I like in this movie, but the absolute banger of this entire sort of musical album is The Hell of It, the song that lives longer than anything else because it's that fucking good. And it's over the end credits, Gina. It's a weird way to structure your musical. But getting back to Rocky Horror, there's something about this, like, because that's very focused on a nostalgia of old movie serials and 50s sci-fi, marathons and stuff like that. So there's this demon that people need to exorcise at the time, and they're not really sure how to do it. And Rocky Horror does it in a weirdly more populist way, in a way that appeals to the weirdos that will do something about it. And Phantom of the Paradise is a subsection of those weirdos. It does not reach Rocky Horror levels, but it does have a cult attached to it, that's for sure.
Well, the thing I think that why Phantom of the Paradise might take a while to grow on people is, I get the sense that Brian De Palma is obviously he's parodying the music industry and its constant devotion to, trying to keep up with what fickle audiences want. I mean, of course, the funniest running gag in the movie is that Swan, this satanic record producer, has this, this core band that he works with, the Juicy Fruits, and they're really, really dorky. And but he keeps changing them to meet with, what he thinks audiences want. So when we see at the beginning, they've got that kind of 1950s, Frankie and the Four Seasons, kind of white doo-wop, where like the guy's got like a fake, like kind of vaguely Hispanic, vaguely Brooklyn accent.
Yeah, I wrote that down. I'm like, what accent is this? And then they're like, Archie is trying to do. It's almost like he's some sort of Bulgarian meat vendor. I don't know what that is.
And then they're like surf pop, and then they're goth, and then they're this sort of like art rock, and it just sort of. But they keep singing the same like just different versions of the same song, just tweaked to go with their what their persona is at any given time. Yeah. But I get the impression that De Palma is not particularly a fan of the music that he's parodying. Like when we have, of course, the best character in the whole movie, which is Beef, is he's supposed to be parodying glam rock. and so people like David Bowie, people like Roxy Music, like groups like Roxy Music, where obviously, like, again, he's not sexy. There's like he's he's using like grandma curlers to make his hair curly, and he looks like he's wearing a Halloween costume, and it's sort of an unflattering portrayal of what glam music was like and what glam rockers were like. So I do think it's funny that I don't think that he likes what he is parodying, but it's also not a particularly too hateful of a parody.
Well, I mean, he would have to show someone out of this entire miasma of musical movements who is in fact genuine, and he, outside of Phoenix and outside of Winslow, everyone else is kind of fake.
Right.
So it's not like all these other people are paragons of their particular musical genre. It's all fake. All these people are just willing to do anything and anything to be a music star, and it's all manufactured. So it's not necessarily, I think his disdain has more to do with the business element of it than the actual art, because in his mind, he's not portraying actual art here. All of this is the machinations of a demonic record producer who has a iron grip on the radio. Not that we see any other element of it. If it doesn't exist on stage and one theater and the other, music might as well not exist. We're only told what's popular. So there's a bit of a, singular focus on exactly what's happening in the music scene. I agree that Beef, while a wonderful character, is not exactly what I would call the most sensitive portrayal. In fact, sensitive portrayal is not something that can be aimed at anyone in this motion picture.
No, but another thing I love is that Paul Williams wrote the music. He also provided Winslow's singing voice.
Right,
So Winslow, he's this super nerdy guy. He comes in, he sings his little piano song, and of course it's like, oh, that's not gonna fly with the audiences. We need to repackage this and make this look hip and cool. And yet in 1974, the song he sings at the beginning when he's auditioning, I guess, that would have made it to the radio. Just exactly the way it was, because that like sort of wet noodle, soft rock was very much a popular thing, mostly spearheaded by Paul Williams. So
right, exactly.
Paul Williams was sort of poking fun at himself too, which I thought was very clever that he would do that. That he would basically say that the sort of music that he helped in pioneering was soft and corny and would not appeal to the hip young music crowd.
Well, and I think sort of reflecting probably a lot of what he heard as a songwriter. I mean, he is currently the president of ASCAP, if I'm remembering correctly, if that's the particular musical union that he's the president of. But when it comes to songwriting and stuff like that, I'm sure singer-songwriter at that moment in time, a genre unto itself that was huge. And I'm sure all the time he heard people come in and sing these beautiful songs and hear a record executive go, well, that song's nice, but there's no way I could put that on an album cover. I can't put that on Johnny Carson. Like, we need a better package for that song than this wispy goofball with Coke bottle glasses. Like, that's not going to fly. But that flew all the time.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, this would have been around the same era that Paul Williams wrote Evergreen for Barbra Streisand, which is like, one of the sappiest songs of all time. But, people loved it.
Yeah. No, and they're great songs. It's one of those things where there's this desire that I think the Phoenix is an interesting allegory to insert, or metaphor rather, to insert into this movie, that whatever musical, push is happening is bound to die and is just reborn as something else. And that is really how this entire movie plays out. That whole music, the juicy fruits are on top and they cannot be beat. And yet, we're not 20 minutes into this movie and the juicy fruits have been abandoned for the beach bums, which is just a different kind. We've gone from 50s nostalgia to 60s nostalgia. And without a doubt, one of the standout sequences is the upholstery sequence. And one of the worst songs in the movie is Upholstery. And I think the reason is you're not supposed to be paying attention to the music. It's kind of supposed to be so bland that you kind of stop listening to the lyrics of it and only are watching the two halves of the action that's happening on screen. Because if you can't pay attention to both, there's just no way. And last night, I think it was one of the first times I listened to the lyrics of it and I'm like, holy shit, this is weird as fuck, this song.
Oh yeah. I had the captions on because I always had the captions on. And again, like this and the song that they perform as the Juicy Fruits, again, plays in that sort of false nostalgia of, spending a Saturday night taking a ride with your best girl. And then, then the first Juicy Fruit song is some weird shit about like he died to save his sister's life or something like that. And it's like,
yeah, basically like he died in a Big Bopper-esque tragedy when he had one huge song on the charts. But because he died that way and he died for his sister, then we'll always remember him. Basically, he's a one-hit wonder because he died, which is very cynical. It's so cynical, but
but also like think of a song that was very popular at the time this movie was written. One of my least favorite, most hated songs, American Pie.
Gina, it's like we share a brain. It's so fucking insane.
I hate that song so much.
Oh my God, Jesus, I hate it. But yeah, that song flashed in front of my eyes last night. Like, what are they kind of going for? And I'm like listening to lyrics, like, yeah, they're praising this guy for the achievement of dying while he had a popular song. And it's like, oh, it's American Pie all fucking over again. And Paul Williams probably was like, must have been going, well, whether or not I like the song, it's such a cynical play. It's such a cynical maneuver to play on people's remembrances of dead people, to harness your nostalgia-filled "Woe is my youth, where did it go" song. And oh boy, I hate that shit.
I do too.
I don't, maybe I've said, I don't know. So we've been doing this canonically. We've been going for 7 years because we started recording in mid-January of 2016, trying to figure it out. Like the first few shows that we did, the audio was so fucked up, we couldn't even do anything with it. And then we kind of figured out those issues. We found Cast. And we ended up releasing in June. So June's our official birthday, but in many respects, it started in January. Oh fuck, what was my point? Oh, no. I can't remember what stories I've told or not. My dad owned a recycling business before that was the thing that your local government would take care of. So I would be forced every Saturday to work paper drives at local schools, and people would bring their old newspapers bundled up, and I would take it from the back of the truck and stack it in these giant stacks within a truck. And that would be my Saturday. And of course, my dad would listen to classic rock radio. And if you want to make sure your child hates music, make sure he listens to 60s and 70s only classic rock radio. Because man alive, American Pie just sends a shiver down my fucking spine. Especially if you hear it within the tomb-like confines of a massive metal empty truck that you're slowly filling all day long with newspapers.
Yeah, and then there's the he had the audacity to also release like a fucking 6-minute version of it, and it's like, my God, the ego, Don McLean.
Yeah, well, it was his song. I mean, did McLean really ever do anything else? That's pretty much as big as it gets. Yeah,
I think he did the song about Vincent Van Gogh. I think
sure.
Which is actually quite a lovely song when it's not sung by him.
Sure. No, that makes sense. He's such a warbler. I mean, my hatred for Don McLean does not run as deep as the Eagles, because the Eagles are infinitely
I
more
hate the
popular.
Eagles too. Oh my God.
Gina, how do you make a song better? And this is the quest that the Eagles, when they weren't doing cocaine or punching each other, would often say aloud in the studio. And like, how are we going to make this song better? And then one of the Eagles would say, I don't know, why don't we put 6 fucking guitars on it? And everyone would go, okay, we have so many band members who play guitar. I suppose we should all play guitar on this fucking song. And that's what they would do. It's the shittiest fucking music of all time. Literally so crass, so manufactured. I hate the Eagles, and I hate them all individually. The Eagles should die, and those that have died should be resurrected and die again.
It used to kill me like when you would meet the men, and they're always men or dudes, whatever, who would like the Eagles and then talk disparagingly about Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, fuck you. That's some misogynist bullshit right
exactly.
there. No. If we're talking, listen, yes, were they both excessive in the studio? Yes. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why Fleetwood Mac songs go viral on TikTok and the Eagles don't. The Eagles are going to die. Every year, the Eagles' influence on society gets less and less and less. And if there ever is an Eagles revival in some way, shape, or form, I will riot like it's goddamn January 6th. I'm telling you right now. I will storm maybe Capitol Records. I don't fucking know who owns the Eagles these days, and I don't care. I will burn that shit to the ground.
I will dress up like a Viking, or whatever the hell that dude is supposed to be dressed up as, and run in there.
If there was a time for a revival, it would have been when I guess the Eagles had like a 3-part documentary about, their music career. I think it's on Showtime or some shit. And no one talks about this. It exists in a vacuum. Their popularity is a mystery. Oh my God, I hate the Eagles. This is what happens when we talk about a movie we love. We can't find anything to complain about. So we find something that is tangentially related to that movie and complain about it.
Oh, well, the Juicy Fruits had if it had been like 2 years later, the Juicy Fruits would have been repackaged as like light country.
Yeah. Oh, yes. There is that one sort of light country music performer when they're doing the round robin.
He's thinking like, not yet. They're not ready for this yet.
Yeah. Speaking of, there is an Eagles-like group that actually starts that round robin, where there are like 8 guys in a band and 3 of them are on guitar. That is definitely aimed at the motherfucking Eagles. I promise you. Like, there's a light skewering of like a labelle, like a threesome of 3 soul singers, but that seems very tightly aimed. And then there's the sort of Shining Twins who are singing there, and that has to be aimed at the fucking Carpenters. Not to mention the fact that Paul Williams wrote for the Carpenters.
Right. Yeah, this is all. There's a lot of eye winking happening here, particularly from Paul Williams.
Paul Williams is fucking great. in this movie.
Oh, he's just great in general. I got to see him introduce, do a Q&A before a screening of Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, and
awesome.
and he was delightful. I give her I'm sure you've actually probably, because being in industry, you've experienced this more often than I have. But like, you go to a thing and like a celebrity's there and they're just really, really thrilled to be there. Yeah. And I, that just warms my heart. That's why I'll always say that I know that U2 gets a lot of shit now, but I've seen them twice in concert, and like the joy of being there was just, for them, was just palpable. It just showed to the whole thing. And that's the same thing with him. He was just so delighted that so many people had come out to see him talk about Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
That it lives, that's something you do that could just go away, stands the test of time. I think genuinely is delightful to most artists. And I think when you see someone who is really like, oh, fuck, I can't believe I said yes to this, they have already started to hate whatever they're doing. It's almost never about the thing that it is. It is the fact that they are being forced to talk about something from the past. And it's mixed up in a bunch of bullshit that has nothing to do with what everyone is gathered there to do. Chevy Chase pulled one of these maneuvers in talking about National Lampoon's Vacation. And it was like fucking pulling teeth getting this motherfucker to talk about. And oh my God, he just hated it. He hated it. And poor Beverly D'Angelo is running interference for this dude so hard. And it's like, I hope he was nice to work with once upon a time, and I hope you're making money now, because this is really rough how hard you're having to work to make him seem like a normal, functional human being who's grateful for his fan base, because he did not come off that way. He is the hardest man right now to enjoy his past work based on his current attitude that is not directly related to them being a right-wing fascist or a bigoted tool. He's just a natural-born asshole.
Yeah. Paul Williams, a lot of his music is corny as hell, but I think but he also had his finger on the pulse of what people want to listen to, and people enjoy Korn, and yes. There's nothing wrong with that, but he's got a wonderful sense of humor about it. I will die on the hill that his Muppets episode is top 5 best Muppets episodes, because I mean, he looks like a Muppet. God love him, but he does. The idea that women find him incredibly sexy in this is very funny to me. I'm sure Mrs. Williams finds him sexy, but that's that's where it ends for me. He looks like a Muppet, and in the scene where it's supposed to be him as a young person, he looks like Truman Capote, which is really funny to me.
Rock and roll Truman Capote.
Which is funny, because he has played Truman Capote later. He played Truman Capote in The Doors. In that great.
Oh my God, The Doors, Gina.
That great the great scene where Crispin Glover plays Andy Warhol. Which is like, I love that. I want to just write a whole thing about that scene, because it's just so funny to me.
I think you have to.
I think I do. I think I when he gets with the special telephone where he can talk to God.
Fucking Oliver. Man. Let's get back to Phantom of the Paradise, because I don't want to lose the Phantom of the Paradise too much. This whole tragedy sequence of Winslow, like losing any purchase he has, it's so cartoonish, but it kind of has to be. His downfall has to be so extreme that you'll buy into the rest of it. It's a film that understands its own tone, and it establishes its own tone and never really violates it. So you're either on board or off. And so he semi auditions. He basically runs on stage with a player piano. Swan hears the songs like, get me that, tells his toady, get me that music, and I don't care what happens to that fucking guy. Promise him anything, we won't do shit for him. A month later, he shows up at Death Records, which I met a guy who's working at a clothing store, and he had the Death Records symbol on his forearm, on the underside of his forearm.
That's so cool.
And I'm like, I would never get a tattoo, but if I got a tattoo, it would be that tattoo.
I have considered it. I do have tattoos, and I've considered that one several times.
It fucking rules. I love the Death Record symbol. Then he's Swan, and it's just a random bird. And then Phoenix happens. There's a lot of thought going into this motion picture. But it's a long, extended, cartoonish sequence where he goes to prison, gets all his teeth yanked out.
with as part of a project that's funded by the record company.
It's funded by the record company. Like,
well, we're trying to prevent dental decay in prisoners, so we just pull out all the
So one way to do it is to yank out all your teeth. And he goes, "Oh, I don't want you to yank out all my teeth. Besides, I'm innocent." And the warden's like, "Oh, you're innocent? Well, who else here is innocent?" And every single one of these guys.
Oh, this actor, William Finley, his reactions to things are so funny because he's got these kind of like protruding eyes where he always looks surprised. And like, so he's got these great exaggerated facial expressions, and like he does like all these double takes, and it's so funny. And when he gets his face pressed in the record press. I do like that he's like running away from the building. He's like he's like doing these like weird little like whimpering and crying.
Yeah, and it's almost sped up. I think it's like a frame or two sped up. And he just stumbles into the East River, and like society's like, "Oh, well, that happened." Like somehow it's a below the fold story in the newspaper.
And it's like record creep dies or something.
Yeah. Total loser who wrote some songs dead in river. Body not recovered. And so, like in typical Phantom of the Opera action, Swan has decided that he's going to open his paradise, his Disneyland, as it were. And to do this, he's going to use the music of Faust. Now, it is weird that he's using Faust, but is not satisfied with the songs that are there, because as soon as Winslow rears his head again, he's like, well, this is great because we can actually redo some of this. Some of this stuff needs work. So actually, this works for me. You half alive homunculi. You will. I'm going to like fix you up a little electronic box to go on your chest and feed you into all this electronic recording equipment and change your voice into something beautiful, something, I don't know, Paul Williams-esque, and that'll work for me. And so he just feeds Winslow pills and convinces him to finish his Faust cantata. And of course, because Winslow is so busy writing, he doesn't know that Swan has completely recast his cantata, not for Phoenix, but he's found somebody new, the aforementioned best character, Beef.
I give you beef.
I give you beef. And they rolled
up in a casket.
Rolled up in a casket. The Juicy Fruits / Beach Bums, who still are wrapped in. This is the first time I noticed that they're covered in bandages. Like they're put in makeup because they have burn scars. So he's like, no, I can use this. We'll put them in makeup. The bandages still work for their new undead persona. And they open up the casket like it's the cabinet of Dr. Kilgari. And Beef does this to camera. And I'm like, if you're not on board at this point, I don't know what to tell you. Like that's fucking cinema. What just happened?
Can I tell you the part where he is arguing with Swan about the music and that he falls down and he's trying to get up with the platform shoes? I have lived that. I refer back to the 90s nostalgia for the 70s. I went through that whole dressing like Lady Miss Keir from D-Light for a little while, which meant clomping around in like 4 or 5 inch platform shoes, which, I have done that whole trying to get up with them and like, scrambling my feet around and eventually just turning over like a turtle and like, just getting on my knees instead.
He's turtled. That's do not wear wood shoes on a wood stage. If there's one thing I learned in theater, it's don't wear wood shoes on a wood stage. It's just going to be slippery. I don't know how any of that music would work for Beef and what he brings to the stage. There's something to the fact that he is constantly playing guitar and can't really play guitar that I really enjoy. The fact that he, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a general. I mean, if you took Beef and you slapped him into the middle of Velvet Goldmine, it would work.
Yeah, it's just funny because this actor Garrett Graham, like you've seen him in a ton of things, mostly comedy, but this is a different character that he's usually plays. He usually plays these kind of like uptight, like suburban dads or like officious business guys. And so, I mean, I don't know if De Palma or whoever the cast was cast him because it was funny to see him done up like this, or just, this is the most unlikely guy we could find who would be a glam rocker. But yeah, it's very funny how like, it's completely unconvincing. And then he's doing like this like Mick Jagger thing and like, making like kissy faces at people in the audience when he's performing. And it's the unconvincingness of it is probably the funniest part. Like I said, where he looks like he's wearing a Halloween costume.
Yes. And after he falls on stage and Swan goes, make it your own. He's bricked up Winslow inside his recording studio, which of course does not stop Winslow because we're told very early on, once Winslow is angry, he has the power of the Hulk. He can just do whatever he wants, which I suppose is an unfettered artistic ability in some, or just, I don't know. I don't know exactly.
I think I think it's a way to cover a plot hole.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. That works. Well, hey, he's not above it. Listen, there's no one more cinema than De Palma. De Palma is pure cinema. So if he wants to do something, he will find a way to justify it via cinema. And you just got to go along with it, baby. It's a movie. He knows it's a movie. You know it's a movie. It's a movie. So he hears Beef trying to sing in the shower to calm himself down, as we all do some cocaine, get in the shower. And there's a whole Psycho-esque shower sequence. That's what ended up in Terror in the Aisles, in which he comes in with a knife, cuts open the shower curtain, and plungers Beef's mouth, and gives him a warning. My music is for Phoenix. It's only for Phoenix. Whoever else tries to sing it dies. And Beef tries to escape after this, dressed in a red frilly robe.
It almost looks like part of a Santa Claus costume.
Yeah. And Philbin's like, where are you going? And he's like, I'm going to visit my mother.
My mother in Cincinnati. Now, again, the accent work here, I don't know what he's going for. It sounds a little fey, but also like a little Brooklyn at the same time. And it's just like, I don't know what he's doing, but I'm here for it and entertained by it anyway.
Yes. Whatever it is, it's beef. That's what I can.
And then of course, another great gag, which, I don't know if this is the first movie to do it, but it's definitely something I've seen many times since then, is when he sings, that's obviously not his singing voice.
Yeah. Yeah, because it sounds very different than how he sounds in the shower, and that is Garrett Graham trying to sing that song. But I also we have been shown that this is not Mary Sued, okay? All right, Star Wars truthers, Snyder versers.
Tell them. Put those people in their place.
Yeah, people who are definitely never listening to our podcast. We're shown that Swan can manipulate people's voices. So it's not, outside the realm that whatever Beef is singing into a microphone may not necessarily be what the process sound that comes out of the speakers. So when there's the grand version of Beef on stage, when he's concocted out of audience members' body parts, which no one seems to have a problem with. Everyone enjoys giving up parts of their bodies, including a head. To concoct beef.
And again, that's playing on Alice Cooper.
Right. Yes. Oh, this is the Alice Cooper portion. When I hear people, and I get it, because if you weren't like alive at the time, not that I was like super conscious of when acts were coming out, but this is before Kiss's dominance really happens. So this is definitely a play at Alice Cooper rather than Kiss. Kiss is something that is an evolution of Alice Cooper.
Alice Cooper had a stage show that involved, decapitating mannequins. So yeah, this is definitely, parodying that.
Yeah. And so they assemble Beef, and he sings a song that does not sound like him, but he's carrying it off and the crowd is going wild. And of course, Winslow catches this and sees that Phoenix is not doing his music. And so he decides to murder Beef by sending down a neon lightning bolt and electrifying Beef live on stage.
Which can we top any choose your own death bench or beyond that?
No. Listen, if there's a way to go on this God's green earth, it is to die by neon lightning bolt on stage. That is the top. It never gets any better than that.
Exactly. I concur.
And so now it becomes a struggle of wills between Winslow and Swan to see who will have true dominance over his Faust musical. And basically Swan realizes that he's going to have to put Phoenix on stage because his normal machinations of keeping Winslow at bay are simply not going to work. But he also has to get Phoenix out from under any influence Winslow might have on her. And so his idea is, I'm going to drug her up and marry her live on stage. And this is going to work out great.
And then also have her killed, because people will, that's not something I could do more than once, but somehow this will be the greatest show anybody's ever seen.
Yes. And this is where we get into the real Dionysus of it all. This is the most Dionysus sequence of everything. And as a result, at the end of this, everyone pretty much dies. I'm trying to think back because I stopped writing notes and just started watching the movie. But not like I haven't watched this movie 11 times. But Swan dies, Winslow dies, but does Phoenix die? I think she's kind of left.
Yeah, no, nothing. No, she doesn't get hurt or anything. She just, she's just kind of like Swan does try to kill her, but does not succeed.
Yeah. And then oh, woe is me happens, and it's the greatest tragedy in rock and roll. And oh yeah, this crazed maniac, the Phantom of the Paradise, was Winslow, the guy who helped me when I was auditioning. And that's it. And then the hell of it plays over the end credits, and you don't turn it off because it's the best song in the entire movie.
And we get to see what Winslow looks like under his mask, and he's got, you know, the big Friday guy.
Yeah, yeah. He's proto Jason Voorhees. He's a real phantom here of the Paradise of the Opera going on. What a great costuming choice to make him into a big bird. He's basically the Death Records logo when you think about it.
Yeah, I guess he is. I pictured more of like a crow, but and like the helmet is described as something looking more like an owl, but I think it's just a general bird mask.
And the influence of this movie on everything else that comes. I mean, obviously, Rocky Horror is already on stage. Like that in terms of the content of Rocky Horror, that is sort of unto itself. That's happening on a parallel track. That being said, when it comes to the movie presentation of Rocky Horror, someone definitely watched Phantom of the Paradise, because there's totally a lot of that they port over into Rocky Horror as this is a way that we can present this. Although there's also the influence of Tommy. When does Tommy come out?
Tommy comes out in 75, I think, but the album, of course, had already been out by then.
Sure. Right. But I think there's this mode of how you do a rock musical in film that seems to be happening at the time. I would assume, since this is coming out, my guess is it isn't a heavy influence on how they film Tommy, but it might be a way of how they edit Tommy after this.
Certainly with like a lot of they too do the kind of disorienting split screen and like the occasionally unflattering close-ups of characters and so I would definitely say that it was an influence on it. Sure, definitely.
And then, of course, we can't deny the influence that this had on Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Well, you couldn't even finish that sentence, could you?
I couldn't.
You tried.
How much of our audience would we lose if we did a 5-part Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? You want to know something?
I've never seen it.
You've never seen it?
No.
Oh my God. There are fewer Gina has to see this movies than Sgt. Pepper's.
I think I've been meaning to, honestly. I just haven't. Like I do love insane musicals. Like if I ever ran a theater and programmed a double feature, I would do Phantom of the Paradise and The Apple. Cause I feel like they're kind of similar in themes, except The Apple has no discernible sense of humor. Whereas, the Phantom of the Opera the Phantom of the Paradise is very intentionally funny. But again, the whole battle of good and evil and the very virtuous, young woman at the center of it all who almost
is
lost
corrupted.
Right. She's almost lost the temptation and then she pulls back at the last minute. So they're very similar in except, in Phantom of the Paradise, it's about rock music and The Apple's about disco. So
yeah, The Apple is about cocaine.
Well, yes, I mean when you boil it down, it's about cocaine, which is boiled down. It actually turns into crack.
Two things about The Apple that people need to know. A, it is the only musical that I'm aware of. Like, it existed before they filmed it, but they rewrote it entirely, and every song sounds like they wrote the music for it entirely. And then there's a knock at the door. We're filming this tomorrow. And they're like, but we don't have any lyrics. And they go, here's amount of cocaine and a rhyming dictionary. Go for it. And that's what every song sounds like. Cocaine and a rhyming dictionary. Secondly, there's a game I love to play when I show it to new people. And I've done it every time. And it's always a hit. And that is, we watch the first 15 or so minutes. We get through the a Eurovision Song Contest, and sort of like, and they wake up and they go to the office and it's the Apple music sequence where they meet an actual vampire. And I pause the movie. I tell people I'm going to do this. I pause the movie and I go, okay, I'd like everyone to write down on a piece of paper how you think this movie is going to end. Just you take a wild guess. Write down on a piece of paper, how is this movie going to end? And I gather all the papers. I go, you're all going to be wrong. All of you.
I don't want to say anything out. That's good. I actually, if you are listening and you are ever you're in the running for picking a movie out for us, I would love to talk about The Apple. I honestly would. It's not a good movie, but it's
a great movie.
It is incredible fun to talk about.
It is almost more fun to talk about than it is to watch. And it's a lot of fun to watch. It is, you can't believe where it's going to go the next time it stops a song. You're like, well, that was fucking crazy. And then it starts another song. You're like, that's crazier than the last song we just watched. And it continues, like, it's hard to bounce from song where someone goes, it's great to have slaves, straight into Speed is awesome. Like, that happens. Those happen back to back. Like, it is the craziest fucking thing ever committed to film. There's nothing stopping anyone from going, this is a bad idea. Now, Sgt. Pepper's is complicated by the fact that the songs are great and the fact that several of the sequences that happen within it and the interpretations of those Beatles songs are legitimately great. But what happens in between there is fucking Looney Tunes that anyone in their right goddamn mind thought, this Beatles musical with Peter Frampton and the Bee Gees, for people who cannot act to save their lives. They're going to be the center of this. There's going to be a thread for you to follow. It's all going to work out. And none of it does. And you are left with George Burns narrating, trying to thread a needle, trying to create a patchwork quilt out of this ragtag group of random fucking cocaine farts is it's genius. And then it ends with everyone singing on the Universal backlot in a recreation of the Sgt. Pepper's album cover. And you look at it and you're like, how did they convince these people to show up? And the only answer is cocaine. Cocaine is the only thing that holds this entire affair together. It is truly amazing.
Yeah, no, but seriously, like, give us one of those movies. We'll be delighted.
Yes. Oh my God. The note session on Sgt. Pepper's. I would probably run out of digital space on my computer before I am done with it. The Apple I could probably recite from memory. I've shown it to so many people over the years. When someone asks me, like, what is the best, worst movie you've ever seen? And everyone's like, The Room. I'm like, no, it's The Apple.
Yeah, that's up there.
It's The Apple.
That's up there.
Unless somebody bursts into fucking song in The Room, it's The Apple. Because The Apple has the veneer of a professionally made motion picture. Like, it has locations. It has costumes. It has props. They're forecasting this into the distant future of either 1994 or 1997.
I think it's 1994 when disco lives forever.
Right. And nothing is more musically tuned into 1994 than The Apple.
The only thing that would have made it the only thing that it needed to push it over from being, so bad it's good to genuinely good is that it has no sense of humor. Everything is played completely straight. And this is a song in which a woman breathily sings, I'm coming. And that's not a euphemism.
No, it isn't. She's simply describing what has happened. The lead judge on So You Think You Can Dance is a member of the dance troupe in that movie, and I believe had something to do with the choreography. You can see him in the background of the 1994 dance sequence in which they're in that vast lobby, and he's so fucking tall you can catch him immediately. And so, because we worked for Fox once upon a time, we would like attend various tapings of like American Idol and So You Think You Can Dance and shit like that. So we're at a So You Think You Can Dance rehearsal finale, and this is before the live. They do a rehearsal, but they want an audience so they can tape it in case something goes wrong during the live thing, and you can cut to the taped version. So we're there, and he's like, does anyone have any questions? And I'm desperately with my hand, like in the air, like, my God, you have to choose me. You have to choose me. You have to choose me. He's like, okay. And I'm like, any behind the scenes stories on the making of the apple? And he looks at me dead in the eye like, I'm going to leap across this and murder you.
No.
Goes, I don't know what you're talking about. I go, the 1980 musical, The Apple, in which I can see you dancing in that background. You're in the Kama Sutra sequence as well. Like, it's pretty plainly you. And he goes, I don't have anything to say about that, and chooses someone else immediately.
Wow.
So mad.
And then you're like on the blacklist, never allowed to bring
never again.
Taping
This
of
guy
Dance.
is banned.
There's a picture of you like at the security desk. Don't let this man in.
Yeah. Between that and Becky begging me to ask Robin Williams, how was it to work with TV's Eric LaSalle during the 1 hour photo Q&A? Those are my two best Q&A stories. Specifically TV's Eric LaSalle. We were very high. That was a period of time which we would hotbox in a car before we go into something. Where have those days gone? Why aren't I getting super high before Q&As? Oh, that's right. I have a child. Yeah. So, anything? Oh, out of how long have we been talking here? An hour. How much time do you think we devoted to Phantom of the Paradise?
I'd say 60%.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. It's so good that just describing well-lensed sequences seems like it'd be hard. Unless we're getting really into the weeds of why it's such a good movie and just breaking down individual sequences. It's just one of those things that defies analysis in terms of what does this mean? Ultimately, what it is both De Palma and Williams being incredibly cynical about what makes them money. And for De Palma, this is a way to like recycle techniques that he has and show them off in a way he thinks is going to be populist enough for him to be able to make another movie.
Yeah, I go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's pretty much the point.
Yeah, I was going to say that if you are not, if you're not well versed in Brian De Palma movies, I would say that in tone and theme, and this is not typical of the type of work that he does, but there are elements like De Palma fucking loves split screen. He did split screens in Carrie, and funny thing about Carrie, I'm sure you know this, but the set dresser of Phantom of the Paradise, Sissy Spacek. She was hanging out with her boyfriend, who was the cinematographer, one of the cameramen.
I think he does production design.
Yeah, and he also did the production design on Eraserhead. Sissy Spacek is thanked in the credits of Eraserhead because I believe they also helped with the funding. But no, like the split screen is something De Palma used often throughout the 70s and into the 80s. He used it in Carrie, he used it in Blowout, he used it in Body Double. So that's, that, and very famously in the movie Sisters, which I believe was the movie he made immediately before this. There's a pretty excellently filmed murder scene that is done in split screen, and I love it. It's so good.
Sisters is obviously he's not given the equipment that he needs to do the technical things he wants to do in Sisters, but you can tell that's a hell of a filmmaker. He's making the most out of what he has available to make the most movie he can possibly conjure.
But generally speaking, he would not make other movies quite like this. So if you're looking at this as an introduction to De Palma, I would not go here, but I would not overlook it either.
No, I think it is absolutely necessary. It's definitely, because he did do those sort of weird loosey-goosey comedies, before he decides to go in the more thriller direction of Sisters. So there's that part of him. And obviously the Dionysus, documentarian part of him. So it's bringing a lot of things together. And then after this is Obsession, which he hates because he was forced to cast someone in the lead that he did not want. And I can't remember who that actor is, but he is wrong for the part. And he was demonstrative that he was the greatest actor alive at the time. And then after that is Carrie. And Carrie kind of falls in his lap and he makes a meal out of Carrie. And Carrie basically is his blank check that after that, he gets a really long run of being able to do what he wants until, weirdly enough, Scarface tanks at the box office and becomes the largest film that looms over his catalog. The thing that has the longest cultural tail for him. De Palma's and if you haven't watched De Palma, the documentary, it is one of the better Hollywood documentaries on the face of the planet. I have watched that often.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good one.
Because he's one of those people who, they say certain people make the same movie and over and over again. I don't know that he makes the exact same movie over and over again, but he always has a voice. His voice is in every movie he makes. The closest I think he's ever made to a movie without his voice is that Mars movie that he was forced to make for Disney.
Oh yeah.
Contractually.
Mission to Mars.
I think it's Mission to Mars. Yeah. It's ungood, that one. That was at a time where everyone was racing to make a Mars movie. And Mission to Mars was tanked so hard that a movie called Red Planet, which Warner Brothers made, delayed for 2 years in the hopes that the stink would go away. And then they finally released it.
And it didn't.
It didn't help at all.
No.
Although Red Planet is a decent enough little thriller. It's fine. Yeah. I would love to cover more De Palma stuff.
Yeah.
He's such an interesting director.
Yeah, yeah. We've been talking about doing Body Double for like years now.
Oh, yeah, we have. Because that fits the neatest into our exact sort of edict. It is a slasher in a sense.
It's a slasher.
It is commentary.
It also falls under the After Dark arena. Yeah, should we return to that? There'll be a good candidate for that.
Absolutely. And it features our favorite actor of all time. So
trying slightly harder, albeit still very unconvincing.
I think
that he did in Dream Warriors.
Yeah, Dream Warriors. I mean, listen, he's cast well in that because he's supposed to be a dupe, right? He's supposed to be a dum-dum. And that's the reason why he's brought into that plot is because he's a big dum-dum. He's a sexy dummy. and people constantly pull shit on him because he's got no brains, and it works. It works. But when you make him a doctor who's supposed to be the cool doctor who doesn't listen to any of his fucking patients, and then all the plot revelations that should go to Nancy go to him for no goddamn reason other than he's the male of the story, I'm sorry. People really do ignore the shit out of the fact that he's the lead in that movie. They just don't want to hear it. But it's true. So that pretty much does it, unless you have something else to say about Phantom of the Paradise. I mean, I could talk here for 3 hours about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you haven't watched it, stop what you're doing and watch it. It's Saturday as we record this. If it's Saturday while you're listening, it's on Amazon for like $3. You can rent it. It is very much worth your time. It's barely clocks in an hour and a half, and it's not a minute is wasted. It's just it's a lot of fun. It's not always very easy to follow what exactly is happening, but it's a musical. Musicals generally don't focus a lot on plot. I just wanted to say that this was a surprise drawing because, as we mentioned on Maine, we hit just before Christmas over 100 patrons, which was a shock to us. Somebody out there is plugging our Patreon episodes, which I appreciate. So I do tend to think sometimes they're among our better episodes because they're not as structured.
Sure,
it's more of a conversation than a plot, a point by point plot recounting. But we opened it up without announcing it to anybody, to everyone basically to get their name drawn to choose a movie for us this month, and the winner was Neil. So Neil offered this one of two choices. This was a second. We both jumped on this one immediately.
Yeah,
not a problem with the first choice. We were just very excited for the opportunity to talk about this movie. So we thank everybody so much, and we'll do it again if we can get up to 150 people. And every 50 after that, we'll open it up to everybody getting a chance to give us a movie to watch.
Yes, I think it's important to encourage everybody to be a part of the crew. And I think everyone is enjoying the content on Patreon right now. We've gotten a lot of feedback that people are very much enjoying the commentary episodes, which I'm very happy about.
We were worried about. We were not sure how well those were going to do because neither of us had ever done one before. And some commentary tracks, I would say the gold standards probably We Hate Movies. But there are a lot of them just yammering and yelling and kind of talking over the movie, which we do, but
on occasion
we try to be just us constantly talking.
And to me, it feels like a live notes session. I try not to take notes ahead of time. I might have a bit of reference to speak about that I'll give along the way, but to me, it's like these would be like notes I would take as I watch the movie. You're watching a live notes session. So, and now we're going through Friday the 13th again. We're revisiting that. And based on a lot of feedback, people like it when we talk about Friday the 13th. So this is a great time to jump on board. And not to disparage our Halloweens, because I think our Halloweens are revelatory. Some of them are first-time watches for us, and we are learning in real time shit we never had seen before. So I think those are pretty damn good as well. But thank you, everyone, to Patreon, because you're helping us evolve what our artwork is. You're helping us evolve what music we use on the show. And obviously you help pay for all the things that make the podcast possible. And that is incredibly helpful because we're not earning any money beyond that on the show. And after 7 years, we're only doing this because we really love to do it. I don't know about you, Shannon, but I'm happy that there are people who are able to make money solely on their podcast. That sounds cool. I don't know how we would do that necessarily, but what I do know is that we can do it without pulling money out of our own pocket, which was how it was for the first 5 years of this show.
I get the impression that neither of us like asking for money, so it was a little. It took us a while to feel that we were entitled to start asking for money, and it's turned out better than I think either of us imagined it would.
Yes, I'm eternally grateful to everyone who listens to the show. It really is heartening to be on whatever social media feed we're on and have interaction with you and to hear what you like, hear your suggestions, answer your questions, be a part of the community. It really is an intense privilege that I cannot say it enough how much it means to both of us to be a part of, to have us in your ear holes all the time. It really does mean a lot to us that you enjoy the show. We are doing it for you, and we're happy that us goofing around is entertaining to you. So this comes out tomorrow, so there's very, very little time in between. So what is happening this Friday, as you're listening to this, we will have an episode that's already recorded of The Menu, 2022's The Menu, which Gina and our guest really, really enjoyed. And I will give you my thoughts on it within the episode. And then the week after that, we have the wildest episode of Knight Rider that we've ever watched, which I think for the two of us is the only episode of Knight Rider we've ever watched, called Halloween Night. It is truly bizarre, and it's a very fun episode. And at the end of the month, we'll have our Friday the 13th 3D commentary to listen to, and Gina's going to watch the 2D version. I will be watching the 3D version because I have a 3D television, and that's how I choose to consume my 3D content, goddammit. And so that just about does it. Thank you, everyone, one and all. We'll see you at the end of the month and on the main feed. For the body count will continue for myself and for Gina. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.